G'day and welcome to today's video for the further maths series on displaying and describing the distributions of categorical variables. Welcome if you are new to my channel. This is the start of a brand new series of videos and we are absolutely going to deal with categorical data. We're dealing with the core data section of the further maths course. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, hey, join in, have a watch and see whether it's any use. Maths is, of course, universal. It is great having you here. Please don't judge the shirt. It's feeling a bit sort of Hawaiian here. My name's Darren. I'm Maths Guru, and it is my very, very small personage who's trying to do a big job in recording all of these videos to make you brilliant with maths. Now, I actually found maths really hard at school, and so hopefully I have a way of, with a little bit of humor, a little bit of real world, and a lot of awesomeness, yeah, I know, a bit big-headed, will help you do this maths. So if you haven't already done so and you're new to my channel, can you do me a favor? Over on the right hand side there is an arrow that says subscribe, and if nothing else, in a moment I'll bring out Zero the dog, who is my mascot, and he is adorable, and if you don't subscribe then you are cold-hearted. Now, as I say, this is the start of a new course, and by the end of this, we're going to know how to use frequency tables and bar charts, including stacked and segmented bar charts, to know what the mode is used for, and also to be able to write responses to statistical questions. The great thing about the further maths course is that you have to be able to write what you're understanding. And a lot of people find the core data and the financial section is quite challenging. Now, I don't know why, because if you have a summary book, you can write all the standard responses in and just change the numbers. Now, if you don't know what I mean, I promise you by the end of this lesson, you will stick with it. But the last lesson, if you haven't already watched it, there's a link above to take you to the video. We dealt with the idea of categorical variables, numerical variables, and each of the subdivisions of each of those: nominal variables, ordinal variables, discrete, and continuous. Now, obviously, one of the things about data is if we do it all in like raw data, imagine I'm out there doing a survey of people's gender, then an example of the data I might end up with is shown here. Not very useful, really, is it? My brain has no way to compute what this actually means. So we try and make sense of the data by using things like tables and charts and diagrams, because we're very visual beings. So I've asked 75 people, lots of questions, and as I say, one of those related to what gender are you? Now, by that, I mean male or female. So before we go any further, what type of data is that? It's categorical. Is it nominal or ordinal? It is nominal, because remember, ordinal means we can put it in an order. And I don't know about you, I don't believe that men or women are any more superior than each other, so we can't order them. So there is my data. Now, let me ask you now, before we even go any further, can you look at that and tell me how many males were asked? Now, you can pause the video and you can count them all, but what about how many females were asked? What percentage of the survey was male and what percentage of the female was female? Now, we like percentages. Remember, you've had them for your tests and assessments from about the age dot, because we know that 100% means you're really good or very high, and 0% means maybe not so good. So can we turn this information into something useful? And as it turns out, we can. Do you remember tally charts? Wow, I love tally charts. They were awesome. You know, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, now we may not actually resort all the way back to tally charts, but the process is relatively simple. I found this great picture on Google Images, to be precise, that obviously they've done some sort of bird counting. And from that information, even ignoring the rather dodgy pictures of birds on the bottom there, we can get some sort of information. My brain's already telling me that I've got 5 robins against 1 sparrow on a Friday. I'm already trying to make sense rather than this list of robin, sparrow, robin, sparrow, robin, sparrow. So going back to my data, if I can use a table to display that data in a more useful way, then life is good. And this is called a frequency table. So I've scaffolded it here, and what do I have? I have sex, which is obviously female or male. Now, the order I've put them in here is not linked to anything. It's completely arbitrary. I could do male then female, but actually I tend to do female then male. Females are way more important than males. See, I threw that one in there, didn't I? Then we have frequency, which is split up into number and percentage. So what we're going to do first is we're going to find my frequency as in numbers. Now, frequency means number of. Nothing more, nothing less. It's just looking for the number of. Sorry, I've scrolled that out there, and some of you might have been counting already. I can feel the complaints coming in now. Luckily enough, I've already done all the hard work, and I know the number of females happens to be 40, and the number of males therefore has to be 35. Now, interestingly, knowing this 40 and knowing the total, I could subtract one from the other. I tend not to. I actually go back to my original data and I continue to count. Because if I actually count that my males were 36, it means one of two things. I've either miscounted the number of males, or I've miscounted the number of females. So sometimes we don't want to introduce mistakes into this. So once again, let's just do this so that it's neater. 40 for females and 35 for males. Now, in many cases, we would be asked to find percentages as well. What percentage of the population or what percentage of the survey were female? Now, how do we do that? We fire up our CAS calculator. And over on that side of the screen now is my CAS calculator, and I'm using the Casio ClassPad for the school that I work in. And in fact, I particularly like this calculator. I was a TI inspired. Please, Texas calculators are awesome, but I think the ClassPad has a bit of an edge on all sorts of different things. So if you're using the other calculator, my apologies. Videos will follow that show you how to do it, but just not at this moment in time. So the important thing to note is at the bottom of the screen. It says how to calculate a percentage. And to find a percentage, you take the number of successes and divide it by the total number of trials, and then multiply that by 100. Now this formula, basically that number of, should be on the top there, and I'll correct that in the downloadable PDF that you can get from mathsguru.com. Okay, so loading back up my calculator, I'm going to hit main. And there's my main. And then what am I going to do? So I want the percentage of females. So when it says the number of successes of females, it means how many females do I have? So I'm going to do 40, and then I'm going to divide that by the total number of trials. Now in this case, it means the total number of people we asked, which was 75. Press equals, and I get a fraction of 8 over 15. I'm going to times that by 100 because that's what my formula tells me to do, and I get 160 over 3. Now that's not particularly useful to me, and you'll now see that there's an arrow, a red arrow pointing to the part of the calculator that actually tells me that it's putting my answers in standard. So what that means is it's putting it in fractional form. If I hit the bottom and do decimal and then go back here and hit enter, then I get 53.33%. And that's what I need to know. So my percentage of females is 53.33%. Now lots of people go, how many decimal places do we do this to? My argument is you do it to the number the question asks you. Probably for further maths, you'll be given sort of values that come to whole numbers. It will make your life much, much easier. So I'm now going to repeat it for the number of males. So I'm going to do 35 males, bring my calculator back up. 35 males divided by 75 in total. This time it's already in a decimal. I'm going to times it by 100, which gives me 46.67. So writing here, 46.67. Now again, rounding to 2 decimal places. What do we notice about these two values when they add together? Well, hopefully they give me 100%. So there we go. You'll have questions in your textbook that will ask you to do that type of thing. So what do we now do? Well, having done that, the chances are we're going to go on and actually represent this visually. And I don't know, there's a guy over here in Australia called Barry. Now I have to say, I'm not a particularly great fan of Barry. He sits in a room on his own. There are no windows, there is one door, and all he has beside him is a rather large book of Sudoku. But he is paid in Australia to make maths as complicated as he possibly can. That's why we have product and multiply and times just to stand for the same thing. You know, sum and add. What are we doing? Well, thankfully in the United Kingdom, I'm fairly sure we shot Barry twice. I mean, obviously I don't believe that we should shoot anybody, but actually anybody who makes maths hard should not be allowed in an office or anywhere near the curriculum. It's my job to get rid of Barry, and you will see a hashtag all the time that goes no more Barry. Now the point of it is, if we look here, there are 3 bar charts, okay? One of them here is the bog standard, very pretty, thank you very much, we love this. Bar chart, it's got bars, there are gaps between each of the bars, it's got different colors, we have a scale on the y-axis, we have a scale on the x-axis, life is good. Now this situation here, do you notice what data is being used? Once again, categorical data. Bar charts are great for categorical data. So we've got words being used. And up the side, we've got these percentages. So we've got a percentaged bar chart. Here, another bar chart, but this time it's stretching that way across. Why? Well, because somebody thought that would be a great idea. What happens here, though, is what we're doing is we're showing 100%. Yeah? So obviously what they're doing is they've done some sort of study 13.7 billion years ago, which is weird because I've now got this image of a guy with a clipboard running around just as the Earth was created. Weird, but possible. And then he's obviously gone back to today, whenever today is, with his clipboard again, and he's counted the number of neutrons, neutrinos and photons and atoms. Are you already asleep? Because I feel like I am. So just a different way. And then again, Barry was awesome on this one. He was like mental. Number of humans launched into space. Yes. So what do we have along the bottom? We have year. Now you think that year is actually numerical? Sadly not. It can also be categorical depending on the context of the question. In this situation, it is categorical. And we have the number of humans launched into space. And we start at 1961 and we're going up to 2017. And look at the bars. If we really scroll in here, let's look at this one here. What do you notice? We've got an itty bitty red bit. And on top of that's a blue bit. And on top of that's a sort of shadedy blue bit. Why? Because what they're doing is taking the data and rather than putting it side by side, they're stacking it on top of each other. Now we'll come back to that particular graph in a moment. But bar charts can be incredibly important to us and brilliantly useful if we know how to draw them. Okay, so things to note, very important. Gaps between the bars, must be gaps between the bars. Frequency or percentage frequency always goes on the vertical axis. The variable you're trying to display goes on the horizontal, so the categorical data goes on the horizontal, and there is 1 bar per category. Right, so here's an example of drawing a bar chart, and I'm sure you already know this. I won't be able to draw this beautifully accurately because I'm effectively using a digital pen to do this and electricity, but I'm sure you will be able to. So this question is taken from Cambridge Essentials textbook series, and they have allowed me to use these, and thank you so much to Cambridge. The climate type of 23 countries is classified as cold, mild, or hot. Now, let's work out what data that is. It's categorical because it's got words, but it's ordinal. Now that may not matter at all here, but we know by the words cold, mild, or hot that there is some order to using that word. The results are summarized in the table opposite, which is actually below. Construct a frequency bar chart. Now the fact of this is the question says frequency bar chart, not a percentage, so we have to be careful not to make a mistake. So what I would do is I'm going to draw this. And what did we say went along the horizontal? My categories. So my categories are cold, boof, mild, boof, and hot. Again, I didn't have to put them in that order, but it just makes sense to do so. What goes up the side? So this is my category, and what do we do? So we must label it as climate type. And sorry, today my handwriting is shocking. Up the side goes my frequency. So up the side, I'm going to write frequency. And we need to know the numbers. Well, the frequency are 3, 14, and 16. What's the highest frequency? It's 14. And I tend to go 1 higher just to make my graph look awesome. So I'm going to go up to 15. So I'm going to go up in twos. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, and 16. Now, my graph is a little bit high there. So I'm going to rub it out. I'm going to put my arrow there. And if I wanted to, I'd move the frequency down. So what did I say? I'm going to go up in 2. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, and 16. And again, this is where it's going to get a bit ropey. But cold is 3. So here is my cold with a bit of a shading in to make it visually appealing. And that was 3 high. Mild was 14. So mild is 14. Oh my goodness, that is so not straight. And colouring that in a different boy shading. Now, obviously, you've got colours and may well be able to colour that in. And hot was 6. And so, like Australia is most of the year, hot was 6 high. And ladies and gentlemen, there we go. I have drawn a frequency bar chart. Do I have all my important information? Well, the title, we'd need to write a title. What title could we put? Well, we could say the frequency bar, what do we say? Frequency bar chart to show climate type. Beautiful. Frequency bar chart to show climate type. We've got my axes labeled. Thank you very much. I've got my categories there. I've got gaps between the bars. My bars are the same height. I am so impressed. Now, earlier on, I talked about something called a stacked or segmented bar chart. And this is a great example of that. Now, what they do is they take those categories and stack them on top of each other. So, for example, this could very much be the number of days in a month that are classified as cold, mild and hot. And so we could put under here January, for example. If I then went and did February, I would have another stacked or segmented bar chart. And a stacked one is just I'm taking each of those individuals. The important thing here to notice here is how to read each of these bars. This one starts at 0 and seems to go up to 3. And so that contains a frequency of 3. Lots of people misread these and read that bar off as being maybe, let's say 16, and they say, well, that must be 16. It isn't, because we have to make sure that we know where the bar starts. And the bar started at 3. It seems to finish at, let's say, 16. And so this one has a frequency of 13. Reading these things are critically important. Yes? Obviously, when we do these type of things, the important stuff is finding the mean, the median, the mode, or the range. And for categorical data, we can't find the mean, because the mean is for numbers. We can't find the median, because it's for numbers. We can't find the range, because it's for numbers. But we can find the mode. We can find which one is the most common. And again, the way I remember this is MO, mode, MO, most. And they can try and trick you sometimes, Barry, with modal. Modal just means mode. You can have one mode, you can have two modes, but ultimately what it is it asking you for which category has the highest frequency. If we were to go back to my graph here and say which category had the highest frequency here, well, without even drawing the bar chart, you would just read it off the graph and you would say, well, mild was my mode. The last part of this particular section is what is a statistical question? Now, ultimately, this is a question which depends on data for an answer. Okay, so I may go out there and say, what is the average age of people using a leisure centre? That is a statistical question because I need to go get data to provide me an answer. So obviously, here is that question we used a moment ago. In an investigation of the variation of climate types across countries, the climate types of 23 countries were classified as cold, medium or hot. The data is displayed, or data are displayed in a frequency table to show the percentages. There we go, that's that frequency table. Use the information in that frequency table to write a concise report. Now, concise means do not write an essay. You do not want to write your life story. We do not care about what pretty colours the table is in. It's not important to know that it's blue in the bottom and no. It wants the statistical data, the stuff that you can do. Okay, so write a concise report on the distribution of climate types across these 23 countries. And I'm going to leave that in. This was a suggested response. And in many cases with further maths, you can actually snip that out and use it as a scaffold. You can use it to help you write responses for other questions. That's the great thing about further maths. So this is what the suggested answer was. The climate types, because we're talking about climate types, so reference what it is, of 23 countries, put the total number of countries in, were classified as being cold, mild or hot. So realistically speaking, we've repeated the question, but we're repeating it because we understand it. The majority, do you see what we did there? We've made reference to the fact that we know the most. The majority of the countries, that's 60.9%, were found to have a mild climate. So we're using the data. We're saying I can look at a percentage and I can relate it to a category. Of the remaining countries, 26.1% were found to have a hot climate and 13% were found to have a cold climate. We reference that data every single time. We started off by saying we knew what was important. And what we are suggested is to be considered a good response. These are the things that should be in your answer. If there is a clear mode, mention it. So we did that. Where was a clear mode, we said that the majority of countries, that was a mode. Include frequencies or percentage in the report. You don't have to, if you had a massive bar chart, you wouldn't include all of them. You'd include 2 or 3 to show that you understand what it's talking about. Lots of categories, don't mention them all. I've just said that. Ensure you mention reference to what the question was asking you. So like an English essay, do you remember you used to start and say, when the question says, what was Romeo and Juliet thinking when they, I don't know, suicided each other? You would say, when Romeo and Juliet suicided each other, the following happened. We just made reference to it. And actually, believe it or not, that's the end of this lesson. I'm just going to swap to the other side of the screen. And I'm there, and I'm obviously going to grow bigger now because that is your cue to say, well, I'm pretty much done, barring the important stuff. Please, 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 if you can, do me a favor and subscribe. In a moment, a circly thing will come over on the other side of the screen and you can click it to subscribe if you haven't already done so. And a great, great favor from me, can you spread the word? I am a very small person, just me, sitting in a room on my own, trying to do a big job of helping as many people as I can with further maths. It's really good seeing you. There is another video loading as well of the same course for you to watch. Have a great day. This is Maths Guru out. Until I see you the next time. Bye-bye.